Walt Disney's Disneyland.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Each week as you enter this timeless land, one of these many worlds will open to you. Tomorrowland, promise of things to come. Fantasyland, the happiest kingdom of them all. Frontierland, tall tales and true from the legendary past. Adventureland, the wonder world of nature's own realm. Presenting this week from Adventureland, the Crisler story and Prowlers of the Everglades. And now your host, Walt Disney.
Looking over the scripts for our nature films, our true life adventures, an odd fact comes to mind. All of these scripts were written after the pictures were made. In making our wildlife films, we have a saying that nature writes the screenplays, we add the words for the narrator to say. Actually, it has to be this way, because we never know in advance what nature will offer or what the plot will be. Since nature calls the shots in our pictures, filming her creatures is always a gamble. Sometimes we reap rewards beyond our fondest hopes. At other times, we draw a blank. The sagas of the photographers who play these long shots sometimes turn out to be true life adventures in their own right. On this program, we're going behind the cameras with the photographic team on such an assignment. After that, you will see a completed picture from our true life adventure series, Prowlers of the Everglades. So now, let me turn you over to your guide and narrator, Winston Hibler.
Trying to predict the ways of nature is not only a gamble, the odds are always on her side. And this was certainly true when we set out to film the migration of the caribou for our forthcoming true life adventure, the Arctic Wilderness. Since earliest time, hundreds of herds of caribou have roamed the Arctic and subarctic regions of our continent. In spring, they migrate to summer pastures. With the coming of fall, they return to their winter quarters. But the broad plains of Canada offer few vantage points for photography. Over this vast area, the herds tend to scatter and spread out. So locating a single herd at a given time and place is very difficult. However, the rugged terrain of Alaska forces large concentrations of caribou to migrate through a few remote and restricted mountain passes. A place where this often occurs is in the Brooks Range, the northernmost mountain chain on the North American continent. Out of the heart of these mountains flows the Killick River to join the Colville on its way to the Beaufort Sea. And it's through the valley of the Killick that an immense herd of caribou usually migrates to and from their summer pastures. But nature has a way of changing even her best laid plans, and sometimes the herd chooses any of several different mountain passes. Well, this was the chance we'd have to take, and it was a gamble beset with many hardships. To do the job, we chose a team of naturalist photographers to whom hardship was no stranger. In filming our picture, the Olympic elk, they had encountered similar problems in equally difficult terrain. It was here, on the north slope of the Brooks Range, that Herb and Lois Crisler set up the first human habitation in this region. The caribou will arrive in late autumn. It's already midsummer, and there's much to be done. The job of laying in firewood falls on Herb's shoulders. Supplying the household with water from a nearby spring is up to Lois. Housekeeping near the spring would have been more convenient, but convenience had to be sacrificed for an observation post from which to spot approaching caribou. The Crislers had come here to film other Arctic wildlife too, and so it was necessary to leave the comforts of home from time to time. On these sojourns, rice was their main food. It was light and easy to carry, but it did make for a monotonous diet. True, there was game in abundance, but just one rifle shot could ruin a whole day's shooting with a camera. And so the Arctic stillness remained unbroken. And even in a warren of parka squirrels, the young are undisturbed by the presence of the photographers. But Papa Parka prefers privacy. Although callers are a curiosity, the camera is a contraption he can't comprehend. So, pop goes the parka. But the wily fox sees no cause for alarm. Her job is one of continual guard duty. If she suspected this invasion of her privacy, she'd move her family to some secret hideout in the dead of night. But with care and caution, Herb outfoxed the fox and got these pictures. With a price on its head, the Alaskan wolf has become a fugitive, and it took a lot of patience, perseverance, and a good telephoto lens to film these family scenes of a fast-dwindling species. The first singing lessons start early for the wolf pups. Grizzly bears are entirely unpredictable. Sometimes they'll run from man, but you can't rely on it. The most dangerous animal on the North American continent is the female grizzly with cubs. As an experienced naturalist, Herb Crisler never ignores danger. But he has a theory that animals do not attack without provocation. The trouble with his theory, Herb admits, is the bears haven't signed the agreement. But bears have their problems. They itch. They're well equipped for scratching, but they can't reach all the places. So out of compassion and a hope for some photographic fun, Herb erected this back-scratching pole. In this treeless land, the bears had never before known the ecstasy of hitting just the right spot. Down a little. Up a little. There. No, further over. Just under the left shoulder blade. The Crislers' field trips were interspersed with returns to the cabin. In the summer, the sun shines 24 hours a day. By July, the heat from the horizontal rays becomes almost intolerable. However, the summer sun did offer some advantages. The long, warm days stimulated quick growth in the vegetable garden, which furnished the Crislers with much-needed vitamins. As the season wore on, the wardrobe wore out. Still, even the most tattered garment had to be made to do. But now food, too, is critically low, and the plane with fresh supplies is long overdue. Bad weather may be the cause, or there's a chance of a crack-up. And only the bush pilot knows their location. Finally, late but very welcome, he pays his call and uses a unique method for delivering an air-to-ground message. No caribou in sight yet. Where shall I drop the grub? With the target marked, the pilot starts his bombing run. 4, 3, 2, 1, beans away. Shopping on the tundra is largely a matter of picking up the pieces. Nearly as important as food was the mail. But there's nothing as dead as yesterday's news. unless you haven't heard it. To the Crislers, the signs of winter bring the first fear that their venture may fail. The caribou should have gone south by now. Already, the spring is frozen solid, and water is available only from the partially frozen river. With each passing day, the chances become more and more remote that the caribou will come. Further portents of winter are evident as the bears dig frantically for parka squirrels in a last-minute effort to fatten up for hibernation. But for one bear, at least, it's a futile venture when the squirrel runs out the back door into the waiting jaws of an opportunist. If he doesn't smarten up, he may have to go to bed for the winter on an empty stomach. Finally, the river freezes solid, and ice must be chipped for drinking water. There's little hope now that the caribou will pass this way. The full blast of the Arctic winter is here. The herds must have taken a different route. Still, prospects brighten when the bush pilot makes a ski plane landing. It's hoped he's located the caribou. For the Crislers, it's a welcome reunion. But the news was disappointing. The caribou have already crossed the mountains 25 miles west. It might as well be 2,500. And so the Crislers make a strategic withdrawal. But no story of the Arctic could ever be complete without caribou. When the great herds march north again in the spring, the Crislers will return to the valley of the Killick. Throughout the winter, the caribou have ranged to lower elevations far to the south. Now the call of spring beckons them north again through the mountain passes of the Brooks Range. This is the signal for the Crislers to return to their vigil, determined to photograph the migrating caribou for our feature picture, The Arctic Wilderness. Hopes are high, for they've arrived well supplied and ready to renew their gamble with nature. Soon the lookout in the cabin on the Killick is reestablished. But the fickle caribou have already tricked them once, so the Crislers scout all the nearby mountain passes for any clue that might indicate this year's route. Filming the caribou is their main concern, but they're also alert for other Arctic wildlife, and they keep their cameras rolling when they come upon a family of grizzlies just out of hibernation. Baby bears are not the most gentle playmates, and when they're triplets, the trouble is trebled. On this snowy ledge, when bear battles bear, one is bound to go down for the count. With the coasting over, Herb directs his attention to a pair of 2-year-olds. Their play is even rougher than the cubs. But Mother is always close by to protect them from all enemies. She'll stay with them all through their second summer, but after that, they'll be on their own. Intriguing as the bears were, the lookout for caribou could never be relaxed. From the snow-covered high mountain peaks to the lower valleys, a constant camera vigil is kept. Finally, summer came, but not the caribou. A fickle nature, once again, had sent them by a different route. Although they'd missed twice, the Crislers still believed the law of averages would eventually bring the caribou here. And so, hoping for better luck this fall, they waited out the passing days. But there have been dividends for the time spent here. Hundreds of feet of film containing many unusual scenes of Arctic wildlife. All this film must be cataloged and labeled. Camera equipment must be checked and kept in order for the big day, the day the caribou arrive. now the first snowfall, and the fear of still another disappointment. Anxiety increases as the ptarmigan begins to change his summer plumage for a winter coat of white. But just when every sign points to another failure, there comes a new note of hope. Wolves have converged in the area. Restless, excited, they're continually on the prowl. Even the pups sense an event of major importance. The Crislers' anticipation mounts too, for this could be the payoff. And it is. Closely following this monarch leader comes the vanguard. Then more, and still more, as the caribou pour into the valley in a spectacle seldom seen by man. The wolves are alert for a caribou kill, but so too are the caribou aware of the wolves. Although only a few yards separate them, the ice proves an effective barrier between the hunter and the hunted. Out on the open tundra, any healthy caribou can outrun a wolf, and today it appears they're all in top condition. The lonely lament of the hungry wolf is the sad signal that there's been no kill today. But if the caribou escaped the wolves, they didn't escape the cameras of the Crislers. For them, the gamble has paid off. Thousands of feet of film on the wildlife of the Arctic is their reward for the privations and hardships they've endured. So nature has written a new chapter in another true life adventure, the story of the wonders of the Arctic wilderness. From the mainland of North America, the Florida Peninsula stretches 400 miles southward, reaching almost to the tropics. At its farthest tip lie the Everglades, 3,000 square miles of primitive swampland. Deep in this water wilderness lives a primeval reptile the Spaniards called El Lagarto, the lizard. We know him as the alligator. He's a creature whose way of life has continued unchanged for thousands of centuries. This is the swamp that time forgot, and our true life adventure is a chapter out of the prehistoric past. In this strange setting, primitive creatures feed and breed and stalk their prey just as they did millions of years ago. And always, somewhere behind the curtain of mist, the alligator lies in wait. With each new day, the hunters and the hunted renew the ancient pattern of existence. Even the innocent-looking spider webs are more than mere decoration. Wherever the eye focuses, these subtle snares invite the unwary. With the coming of dawn, the birds descend on these ponds, drawn by the abundance of fish. For the hungry birds, good living is good fishing. And no fish is too tiny to be included in somebody's breakfast. Few are overlooked by these feathered fishermen, so sharp of eye and bill. Spearfishing is a fine art. But here's a bird who couldn't spear a fish if he tried. Still, everyone to his own technique. And the spoonbill has his own methods of getting food, all the while keeping an eye out for the unpredictable alligator. The wood ibis seems to shade the water with his wings so he can see the bottom, then stirs up minnows with his feet. To satisfy larger appetites, these pools teem with garfish, a species surviving from prehistoric times. Mostly bones and scales, they grow to considerable size. The cormorant is another expert who never seems to get his fill. Sometimes he swallows so many fish, the extra ballast spoils his takeoff. A cooling bath is more than welcome, and the little grebe enjoys her morning dip thoroughly. The swallows take their plunge on the wing, satisfied with a splash and a sprinkle, while the snakebird dives right in. He's named for his habit of swimming with only his serpent-like neck out of the water. Oddly enough, his wings become so saturated that he literally hangs them out to dry. The snakebird is sometimes called the water turkey because of his barred tail. He's one of the swamp's strangest inhabitants. Of all the birds, he bears the closest resemblance to those prehistoric reptiles who were the first creatures to fly. And in babyhood, this similarity is even more pronounced. By the time appetites are satisfied, the morning mist has vanished. The birds know better than to relax their vigilance, however. They stay on the alert, even while they preen their fine feathers. Experience has taught them to pay special attention to the thick beds of water lilies, and for good reason. The silent prowler of the Everglades. He's a stealthy hunter and leaves neither wake nor trail of bubbles. The moment he appears, the prehistoric past enters the present. The garfish leap for their lives, but an alligator in their midst is like a wolf in a sheepfold. others join the feast, gators of all sizes. Some grow to be over 20 feet in length. But in this hectic competition for food, the smaller alligators are often more vicious than the larger ones. These insatiable creatures eat anything they can capture. They have an amazing digestive system. Their stomach acids dissolve everything: fish bones, fur, feathers, even a turtle shell. Small wonder they're the scourge of the swamp. The other creatures of the Everglades have lived with this monster so long, they've become accustomed to his presence, and they sometimes seem to tease him by perching mere inches from his nose. The tiny grebe can even be so nonchalant as to paddle with one foot as she looks death in the face. Quite casually, the wading birds fish in the danger zone, in spite of the fact that the threatening alligator constantly cruises just offshore. While the egret hunts for fish, the alligator stalks the egret, the eternal chain of menace in the Everglades. The treacherous gator uses every possible concealment to bring himself within striking distance. So near and yet so far. For when the birds take wing, the alligator must remain the earthbound reptile that he is. Still, he's a persistent hunter. And now the gaudy colors of the purple gallinule catch his eye. At last, he's found a bird preoccupied with its own problems of food gathering. This is his chance. Like the other birds, the gallinule must also risk his life to get food. He feeds on snails, which he finds beneath the lily pads. Sometimes, to his surprise, he also finds alligators. The gallinule's angry scolding gives warning that the prowler of the Everglades is still on the loose. This war of nerves is a strangely unhurried affair, and the birds learn to estimate the margin of safety with calm exactness. A wrong guess of mere inches, however, can mean disaster. When the alligator has eaten his fill, he often lies in the sun. However, A spot of dry land is at such a premium, he must sometimes share it with others. And the problems of space make for strange bedfellows. But once the alligator settles down to relax, he's completely oblivious to his surroundings. In this lazy state, he hardly cares who comes or goes. He undertakes nothing more strenuous than a good yawn. Suddenly, a strange sound alerts the swamp. The mating call of the bull alligator. At first, the female pretends disinterest, accepted feminine behavior in any courtship. Yet all the while, she leads the rival suitors on, maneuvering them into a battle for her favor. To the conqueror, the fair damsel. Before long, the female gathers a pile of wet leaves and mud for a natural incubator. Inside this mound, she lays from 24 to 100 eggs. The heat generated by the decaying material will incubate the eggs in about 2 months' time. If all of them hatched, the swamp would be overrun with alligators, but not all will survive, far from it. In fact, out of every 100 eggs, only a small percentage will reach adulthood. During the incubation period, the female must constantly guard the eggs against numerous enemies, beginning with other alligators. Sometimes these intruders devour the entire 100 eggs. This one, however, has come upon a mother who is devoted to duty, and her wrath is more than a match for it. 100 alligator eggs still have a chance, especially while mother stands guard. Yet, at intervals, she must leave her post to find food. And now, in her absence, a new menace appears. These inquisitive visitors are spotted skunks. Like all their tribe, they have a great liking for eggs of any kind. Now he's found one, the next problem is how to break it. Too big to crack with his teeth, he tries to smash it by passing it between his legs like a football center. And this creates still another problem. For the skunk is so nearsighted, he has trouble finding it again. Oddly enough, an alligator egg is not as fragile as it appears. In fact, its durability and the skunk's poor eyesight finally save it. But only temporarily. When the raccoon comes along, it's a different story. Quite by chance, Mrs. Gator discovers that her brood is dwindling. From now on, she'll keep an almost continual watch over her eggs. Time passes, and toward the end of the 9th week, she listens for a faint call from inside the nest. This is her signal to scrape away the top layer of leaves. Her brood at last is ready to come into the world. A baby alligator's life is a struggle from the beginning. Struggle to escape his eggshell cradle, and later a constant fight to survive. However, he's born with the equipment to meet his problems. A complete set of sharp teeth and a chip on his shoulder. At times like this, instinct guides all water creatures to their proper element, and almost immediately the babies line up for their exodus to the nearest pond. It won't be an easy journey, for a great many hazards lie between the nest and the shore. One of the worst is the renegade bull, who lies in wait along the path to the water. Still, instinct keeps the others moving forward, with the exception of a few whose energies get channeled in other directions. Baby alligators practically come out of the egg fighting. These youngsters have yet to learn that when young things don't tend to business, they're almost certain to get into trouble. And sure enough, here it comes. It looks like the end of the trail for a few more of the brood. Still, baby alligators don't give up easily, and the raccoon's advantage in size is offset by their sharp teeth. Sometimes the young gators use teamwork against the common enemy. But then again, they're just as apt to return to fighting each other. This is more like it. Alligators with a handle. But when the raccoon nearly loses a finger, he suddenly calls it quits. So, after a running battle, the babies reach the shore. Troubles are not over, however, for now the problem of food faces them. An alligator's growth is determined largely by the amount he eats. From the very beginning, these youngsters must compete among themselves for their sustenance. At first, they stay close to their own pond. Yet even then, they're not entirely safe, especially when the raccoon returns with reinforcements. while father deals with one, the family searches the shallows for others. This decimation goes on constantly. The pattern of survival is one that baby alligators learn quickly. Always be on guard, try to eat but don't be eaten, and most important, be very leery of all strangers. This young midshipman, proudly surveying the quarterdeck, has finally figured out that his best chance for survival lies in sticking close to mother. And so, of the original brood, if mother manages to save one or two of her babies, she's done reasonably well in the face of staggering odds. Now some newcomers appear on the scene, a rollicking family of otters. These are the carefree vagabonds of the swampland, who travel from pond to pond. No animals get more fun out of pure play. The discovery that the alligators hold a prior claim to this pond doesn't faze them for an instant. Indeed, that lethal tail seems to fascinate them. They can swim rings around the gator, and they go out of their way to prove it. The alligators don't quite know how to take these impudent visitors. And finally, fed up with the horseplay, they go below, where they're less apt to be disturbed. In this submerged realm of fluid shapes and shadows, the prowler of the Everglades is king, his right to rule undisputed. He presides over a deceptive setting, one with a mirror in the ceiling. Nothing is quite what it seems here. The real and the unreal are interchangeable. An alligator may seem a shadow. A shadow may be an alligator. Vigilance is still the watchword. And even the turtle with his protective armor prefers not to tempt fate. Before the cormorant invades this weird domain, he's careful first to make sure which phantom is really the alligator. This underwater peekaboo goes on constantly. If the gator changes his tactics and goes off to hide, the cormorant is more worried than ever. He'd much rather know where the gator is than where he isn't. Ah, there he is, looking like a harmless log, with a smile. Up above, meanwhile, traffic becomes quite congested. And sometimes these paddlers are so busy watching the alligator, they forget to watch where they're going. Except for the fish, most of these creatures are out of their element and must constantly replenish exhausted supplies of oxygen. The snakebird solves the problem in a way all his own. He simply thrusts his extra long neck above the surface, while his body remains completely submerged. Every bird adapts itself to this water world in its own way. The energetic coot swims with his wings. His feet are not the webbed paddles of the true swimmer. They're merely fringed with delicate membranes. But this makes little difference to the alligator. Dangling feet of any sort are an invitation to tiptoe upstairs. The coot's running takeoff leaves him with nothing but footprints on the ceiling. Uh-oh. Enter the uninvited. Delighted to meet an old friend again, the otters take up the game where they left it. It's against the gator's nature, however, to make himself conspicuous. The only life he knows is one of stealth and deception, and he soon goes into hiding again to practice the art he knows best. Meanwhile, the otters take possession of his underwater domain. To these merry madcaps, life is a continuous, carefree water ballet. In the swampland, all of life follows a pattern of endless cycles, for these things are timeless and will never change. The life-giving rains that follow the drought, the quiet watchfulness of the hunted, the silent menace of the hunter, the calm that comes after the storm. And so this true life adventure is a story that has neither beginning nor end. For as long as nature preserves this water wilderness for her own, the prowler of the Everglades will survive in the swamp that time forgot.
Your whole family will love Cinderella, Walt Disney's all-cartoon feature, all in color by Technicolor. You'll rediscover the happiness and merriment, the fun and fantasy of this best love story in one of the most enchanting motion pictures ever made. Cinderella, spun of dreams, laughter, and romance, enriched with delightful music to put a smile in your heart. Watch your newspaper for the theater near you where you and your family can see Walt Disney's Cinderella. This has been an ABC Television Network film presentation.